Listen up, sports fans. Your favorite sportsbook, BetUS.com, is back for our 28th year of NFL action. With the industry's biggest sign-up bonus of up to 200%, BetUS offers our members the opportunity to cash in on all your favorite sports, including NFL, NBA, MLB, and more. We've also got hundreds of new casino games, including the coolest new European slots, and our live dealers are waiting for you at the table. Sign up at BetUS.com today to get into the action. BetUS, where the game begins.
And now, broadcasting live from Las Vegas, the Snake Sports Talk Show with Jake Silva starts now.
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. We are back and live at it again here on a Wednesday in the middle of the week. This is the Snake Sports Talk Show, wherever and however you may be watching and listening. Of course, Chase, as always, my co-host, joining us. Lots to get into because these matchups are going to be fire this weekend. Lots and lots to go around, plus a lot of coaching insight. There's going to be so much to talk about all throughout, tonight's show, but there's a lot to really get into. But look, I think because again, these matchups that are going to be coming up, Houston, how physical are they against the Kansas City Chiefs? And then you look at the Ravens and the Bills, two prolific quarterbacks that are just going to be fun to watch. And then you got the Rams and the Eagles, and then who knows exactly what we'll see between Washington and the Lions. This weekend's going to be great.
Yeah, like how crazy would it be to come out with the win this week or come out with the win for the Lions and then a win with the Rams, and then we have the Lions and Rams in the NFC championship games. And then what a tell-all story it would be if the Texans beat the Chiefs and the Bills beat the Ravens, and we have the Texans in their first ever AFC championship in their franchise history. That would be insane to see. And then not to mention, after all these games are over on Saturday and Sunday, we have the national championship Monday night to look forward to.
Ohio State and Notre Dame. Yeah, it's going to be a great next couple of days. But I do want to start with this here because initially I wanted to get my thoughts on the Rams and the Vikings. So I do want to start off with this. So watching the Rams and watching the Vikings, let's start with the LA Rams. So first off, the Rams have kind of moved into this. They moved into this kind of setting now, where I'm watching Sean McVay and I'm watching what the Rams have been doing. And outside the numbers, because everybody wants to talk about the statistics of their defense and so on and so forth. But my big thing with Sean McVay and the Rams, I think Sean McVay has moved in to the category of not just being arguably one of the smartest offensive coaches that we know in the NFL, who's gotten the team to 2 Super Bowls. He's become the culture of what the Rams are. This is the Rams standard. And I think we saw that last night because people were talking so highly about the Minnesota Vikings. I'll get to them a little bit later on. But the fact of the matter is that against all odds, here comes Sean McVay and the Rams again with Stafford, with Puka, with Cooper Kupp, and they come in and they just do the business. I mean, this is kind of who Sean McVay is. He's moved into becoming a culture coach, and this is the Rams culture. Les Snead, Stan Kroenke, and Sean McVay, all three of them just work perfectly in harmony. Now, we know that they're not as talented on the defensive front as they once were. Okay, we get that with Aaron Donald. But Jared Verse, Kobe Turner, Byron Young, Braden Fisk, a lot of young guys. This defense is getting better. Okay, and they're young. It's going to take a bit of time. But the thing I can trust about Sean McVay and the Rams is that the offense never going to disappoint. Matt Stafford, he's been into several playoff games, won a Super Bowl with the Rams. But the other thing is that once those three pieces are healthy, this Rams offense will start clicking. And you noticed it immediately. So, and they tore apart Brian Flores' defense, which is also the other important point. Now, against the Philadelphia Eagles, could we possibly see them do this again? Maybe not. Philly, I think honestly, when I look at the matchup, Philly's got such good talent. And not to say that the Rams couldn't possibly come into this situation where they could go and they could rattle up the cage of Philadelphia. They certainly can. But I think we've realized that this is exactly who the Rams culture is. They're just that competitive. And at the same time, look at a lot of the adversity Sean McVay's faced. I mean, guys were getting injured. They weren't sure if they were a playoff team. And then they clicked at the right moment. This is Sean McVay's, this is his identity. This is what he's become. And I love this. I love the fact that McVay, against all odds, could basically take an offense, build it, and then make it consistent to where you've got the playbook, you've got the schemes, and then they're going to just work. It's going to be just fine. And this is who they are. And again, all three of them, from owner to GM to coach, it's perfect harmony. Again, he went out and wanted Stafford. And you're going to get Jared Goff as well. And by the way, he may have lost to Jared Goff last year in the playoffs, but it was a tip of the cap because both quarterbacks got exactly what they wanted. Stafford, with his long years of due diligence, gets the Rams a Super Bowl, and he's a Super Bowl champion. Goff, on the other hand, has an opportunity to get back to the Super Bowl at some point with the Detroit Lions. So that's why, like, when I reiterate back to the trade, it's just fine. It's fine with both parties. This was not a situation where both teams were going to be, like, lacking over the other. They were going to be just fine. So that's why I think the Rams, you saw exactly with who they are on Monday night. Offensive driven, young team, only going to get better. But this is the Rams culture. And by the way, not playing in Los Angeles due to the drastic and horrible fires in Los Angeles, going into a neutral site at their division rival, the Arizona Cardinals, and they still managed to win it, which is one of the most impressive things. That's why I think Sean McVay, he's moved in to that culture space where the Rams, it's going to be fun to be a part of this organization for a long time. And by the way, he's not going to retire coaching. He's still young. He's going to be fine. Sometimes you just have to take a breather. Now, let me talk about Sam Darnold and the Minnesota Vikings for a second, because I know what everybody's thinking. Everybody's like, what do we do about Sam Darnold now after that Monday night game? Well, here's the thought. Okay, both Sam Darnold, Sam Darnold, had a very good year. A very good year. We're not going to take away what the regular season gave us, because he came in, bridge quarterback, like most other bridge quarterbacks. This was what you were going to start with. You drafted J.J. McCarthy and hopes that the plan is you're going to move off Darnold to then go and start J.J. McCarthy. Well, here's now the factor. Darnold had arguably a very good regular season. All right, and it was healthy. It was a healthy season for him. And you got to give him credit. Now, I get it. He was sacked a lot of times in that game. And a lot of that came from the interior O-line. They just didn't do their work. And so in the end, Darnold couldn't get the throws down. And at the same time, couldn't get the ball out fast enough. He was holding the ball on for too long. The thing about this is the Minnesota Vikings are still not losing anything. Because once again, think about this. When Sam Darnold, the question mark was this: if he was to win a playoff game, the Vikings would have been ready to give him a contract extension And the other thing that was also buzzing was that there were trade inquiries about J.J. McCarthy. One of those just so happened to be the Seattle Seahawks. And they would have gotten more draft capital because of who J.J. McCarthy is and what he looked like before he went down with the injury. So to me, now that you saw Sam Darnold lose in a playoff game, this doesn't change anything. They still have J.J. McCarthy, who you can build that offense and you can build the offensive line around. And at the same time, the only thing I'm curious of is their defense when possibly Brian Flores leaves, if that's the possibility. That's the one thing that I know is going to be important. And Sam Darnold, I feel like he's going to test the market. And there's a couple places I feel like he could fit. One of those just so happens was the one who reached out to the Seattle Seahawks. And to be honest with you, I could see this fitting, and that is Seattle. I think Darnold could work in Seattle. You got a defensive head coach. You got you got to go and get a very smart offensive coordinator because they fired Ryan Grew. And at the same time, do we really trust Geno Smith? I mean, it was a nice story when it lasted with Pete Carroll, but the jig's up. It's done. I've seen enough of what I needed to with Geno Smith. He's clearly not the guy. Okay, and I get it. Uplifted himself, got Seattle to the playoffs, but this ain't it. And by the way, they're already going to be inquiring about moves for DK Metcalf. And they could go get another receiver if they like. But the only importance is that Seattle needed a quarterback. They didn't draft one this past season, and this is where they are now. But now, you're better off getting Sam Darnold and hopes that next year you do draft a quarterback because you ain't drafting one this year. So that's why I think Seattle makes a lot of sense. Now, the other few places like the Raiders and potentially the Giants and several other spots, they're questionable to me. But I do feel like that in a sense, J.J. McCarthy or Sam Darnold, he's going to go somewhere where he knows he's going to be a starter. I mean, we've seen that. He's still young. I think he's going to go somewhere where the coach could coach him out of the recklessness. That was the one big thing about Kevin O'Connell. And Kevin O'Connell will be just fine. Okay, you know him going up against his mentor, Sean McVay, who knows all about Kevin O'Connell's strengths and struggles, knows all about it. I mean, that was not an easy setting. But to me, I think if Darnold, he takes a contract somewhere, I think Seattle would work, Cleveland might work, the Giants and the Raiders. But I do feel like he's going to go somewhere where he could be that starter. And I just feel like Seattle makes a lot of sense. It just does to me. They're not in a position to draft a quarterback because they missed out on it this past season. And they're going to be making some moves anyway. So I think in the end, even if he goes to the Raiders, that just depends on their quarterback situation. And I got to see who their head coach and their GM is before I could even make that point. But again, I think there's plenty of options, but Darnold has a market. He's not going to go without a market. He's just not. That's just ridiculous. But this playoff loss should not hinder. It should not hinder what his market will look like. Do I think he should get 40 to 45 million a year? No. If there's anything, if I'm a GM in this league and I was to offer Sam Darnold a contract, I give him the Baker Mayfield contract. That's what I would do. It's not entirely long-term. It's more mid-term than anything else. And he's paid respectfully. Like, is that a crazy number for me to think about with Sam Darnold? Because I mean, Baker Mayfield, I think it was reasonable. Baker, what we've seen is that we saw the Baker who came in with a defensive coach, arguably one of the best offensive weapons, even with the offensive line, because Jason Light just knows exactly how to do this as a GM. He's known how to work this offense. And now you got Jalen McMillan. So gets the Bucs to the playoffs last year, wins a playoff game, knocking down Philadelphia, and then goes in this year. Granted, they lost in a very fun fashion against the Washington Commanders, But I think that kind of contract with Sam Darnold, like Baker Mayfield, just kind of seems reasonable to me. And you're not trapped either. You're in a position to where you've got the quarterback now, and then you could go and draft a quarterback next year if that was the case, because you'll still have Darnold under contract. You're not building any tension in the front in the room. You'll have your guy, because honestly, if it were up to me when it comes to Geno and Darnold, I'm taking Sam.
Yeah, I mean, you have a lot of teams that need quarterback, and it just depends on what team he goes to would be the great fit. Because 3 years, $100 million is not that bad of a contract and everything.
Yeah.
However, if he's on a team like, let's say, the Saints, where they've got no identity and everything, no coach and no culture set, he's going to struggle. But if you get him in a place like Cleveland, where I think that the run pass option, the play action, the bootlegging, pre-snap motion kind of offense that Kevin Stefanski likes to run, that'll fit well with Sam Darnold. It's almost the same. It's almost the same exact one that Kevin O'Connell has ran.
Yeah,
and I think that Kevin Stefanski's been done a great job trying to, incorporate a lot of the new play styles and stuff into his offense and how things go. So it really just depends where he goes. I think that the team failed him. The team failed him miserably on Monday night. It wasn't just on him. I mean, getting sacked 9 times. Yeah. The wide receivers struggled to get open and everything. The defense could not stop the Rams to save their life and everything. So it's heartbreaking. It's gut-wrenching. But don't be surprised, and I'll mention this later, when we talk more in depth about it, but don't be surprised if Dak Prescott becomes a Cleveland Brown by the end of the offseason.
Oh, wow. Yeah, but wow. That's it. Why would you want anything to deal with that contract? Why?
Because here's the thing, here's the thing that okay. So now that we're
going to talk about Dallas when we come back from it, because there's a lot of stuff that's pretty.
There's spicy. A lot of stuff, and there's a specific reason why I mentioned Dak Prescott going to Cleveland and everything. There's a very specific reason. So when we come back and we talk about it, I'll mention the reasoning behind it, and I'll give you my take and thoughts on how the contract would sort itself out.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what, though, Chicago, at this point, I mean, you need stability. And you know what? There's a lot of rumors right now, and I think this could work. And it's pertaining to a specific coach that in Dallas may not work. But in Chicago, if you're going to get high and mighty when you don't have a whole track record of stability, I think this could be a very good fit. We'll talk.
If you're talking about Dion, he's not going to fit well in Chicago.
Oh, no. I got another one here up in for you. That's coming next.
Okay.
Well, like I said, we're kicking off 2025 grand fashion, and the way to do so is by our partners at BetUS, giving you the best in the online sports betting and the best award-winning sportsbook for over 30 years in the country. BetUS has always done well taking care of their customers when it comes to parlay leg bets and analysis and also breakdowns of every single game to get you up to date, whether it's in the NFL playoffs, whether you got the national championship game in college football, college basketball, NBA, NHL, all those things. They got the most award-winning sports book and all of the best analysts for you to get on the edge of your game. And not only that, but when you sign up, you will have your very own account manager. All the things you need. Just like when you're building a coaching staff, you want to make sure that you got the winning team on your side. And that's who BetUS has. BetUS willing to give you the best experience into showing why they have the best award-winning sportsbook for over 30 years. Check out BetUS.com for yourself. Also, check it out in the description below. When you sign up, 50 or more in your deposit in 3 deposits, matching up to 125% bonuses of up to $2,000 in those prizes in just your first 3 deposits, tripling the win, tripling the opportunities for you to walk home big. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or seek therapy in your respective states so you do not gamble recklessly with BetUS, because BetUS wants you to enjoy the experience responsibly. Check out BetUS for yourself. BetUS, where the game begins.
Looking for a show with the best takes and opinions? Want a show with the best coverage around the world of sports? Jam-packed with an all-star interview lineup? Then the best place to find it all, sports and entertainment, is right here. Join Jake Silva on the Snake Sports Talk Show, presented by SeatGeek and BetUS. Weeknights at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific on Sports Wave Network.
Want to find your seat for the event of your choice but can't get one that fits your desire or your budget? Well, my friends, SeatGeek has you covered. SeatGeek is the official sponsor of the Snake Sports Talk Show. With a list of over hundreds of events to choose from, SeatGeek will assure you that you won't miss your seat with the amazing view of your choice at the most affordable price. Whether it's looking for your best seat in the house of your favorite sports team, finding live concerts that get you closer to your favorite artist, or enjoying your spot at your favorite live shows, comedies, and more, SeatGeek has it all just for you. Go online to SeatGeek.com or download the app on your mobile device through Google Play and the App Store. And as a special offer before checkout, use promo code SNAKESPORTS and save yourself $20 off of your purchase of your first ticket, and experience why SeatGeek is the most trusted ticketing app for your next event. Remember, that's SeatGeek.com, and download the app on your phone with promo code SNAKESPORTS for $20 off and find your seat with SeatGeek.
Snake Sports Talk Show is sponsored by Muscle Tech, with hundreds of supplements and vitamins to choose from, all packed with 100% all-natural proven ingredients. You can be sure that Muscle Tech will give you the edge and the boost to train and look like your fit and healthy best, whatever your goals are. Try Muscle Tech today and use promo code SNAKESPORTS to save 30% off your purchases.
Back here on the Snake Sports Talk Show. Good to have you in. You know, it's so this is interesting. So we were coming back up on the break. Chase and I, we kind of talked about it. But here's something that's interesting. So the rumors that are spreading around, and it's more pertaining towards Mike McCarthy, who's now out in Dallas. And you know what? Good for him. Because Dallas absolutely is just a circus. It's an absolute circus. And it's only going to get worse from here, depending on who Jerry Jones now hires as head coach. But for Mike McCarthy, and like I talked about earlier, you know his agent is Don Yee. Okay, Don Yee, respected in this league, very smart guy. He's the same one that Brady had when it came to the contract negotiations. So when Mike Vrabel got hired in New England, the whole point of it was the years, the amount, and what he's working around. Mike McCarthy and Don Yee, they all sat at the table with Jerry Jones, and they were trying to come up with at least a reasonable number, and they did. But Jerry did not budge, because Jerry is all about himself. And Mike McCarthy, look at the disaster that he would have had to deal with. I'm paying a B-plus quarterback A-plus money with Dak Prescott, and I'm trapped outside of the CeeDee Lamb contract, which to me, I need a viable offensive weapon, and he clearly is. He doesn't have a number two, and the offensive line is deteriorating. So Dallas is kind of in tougher shape, and this is why they got to make the moves. They only made one move in the offseason. One. And that was Eric Kendricks. It wasn't enough. Dallas didn't make the playoffs. Washington, however, they turned themselves around, got their franchise quarterback in Jaden Daniels, who, by the way, won a playoff game on Monday night in exciting fashion. And I think if he honestly, with the way Washington is built, if he takes that team to the NFC Championship for the first time since '92, we're going to have a discussion of, this may be arguably the greatest rookie quarterback I think we've ever seen, with just the tempo, the mental maturity, and just being able to figure out his entire headspace, like all around. Now, back to McCarthy. So the one job that, of course, is a hot one is Chicago. But here's my stance of why I believe Mike McCarthy could be a good thing for the Chicago Bears. And the reason of it is, when you look at Mike McCarthy, all in his years in Green Bay and Dallas, the winning seasons, he's averaging 12, 11, 10 wins in a season. He's creating stability. He may not be, a super analytics guy, which he definitely BS'd his way into that job with Dallas, but still took Dak and took a bunch of players to the playoffs, okay, at 12-5. That's a very good note. And Chicago, they've had a history of terrible instability. The only thing you need, if you're going to be gung-ho and you're going to be macho man in there saying you got to get, a Ben Johnson in this building or a Cliff Kingsbury or any of them, you haven't built any stability. That's the problem. And you think those two coaches are going to handle the instability that Chicago has? It's a lot deep-rooted than that. Mike McCarthy, say what you will. Okay, from his tenure in Green Bay to his tenure in Dallas, McCarthy at least gives you the best hopes of stability. He does. Because in the end, it's not only trying to make Caleb Williams work, but did you know they were third in the league in false start penalties? They can't get set at the line. Also, they had a lot of motion penalties. Can't get set at the line, too much movement, not enough structure and control. This is why you need stability first. Okay, and you think Ben Johnson and any of them is going to help to solve that. It's not as easy as it looks. So that's why I think if you hire Mike McCarthy in Chicago, that's not a terrible thing. I think you're going to add more stability to the coaching staff, to the roster, maybe potentially to a culture, because again, he's very familiar with the NFC North in his coaching days in Green Bay. And how many times has he stepped foot in Chicago and has taken it to the Bears? He knows that culture. Okay, and he knows that culture's strong. Knows there's instability in that entire front office and in that organization. And that's why Ryan Poles and the rest of them, they got to get it right. Tuck the ego tails away. That's for Kevin Warren and for Ryan Poles. And do the right thing and add stability. Because listen, how could you possibly function in life if you have instability? You can't. It would create too much anxiety, and it would also limit your potential. Like, you would be drained. If Chase saw how much instability we have on this show, he'd be like, dude, get some control, get some consistency in your life. That's all it counts to accountability. That's why I think that Chicago needs to hold themselves accountable, and they need to get a stability guy. And I think, honestly, Mike McCarthy fits perfectly with this. I think he'll do just fine if he's given the job in Chicago. You're going to see that with how healthy it is when you stabilize yourself, build yourself some structure and consistency, and then maybe you'll actually be taken seriously as an organization. Chase with the news.
This is the Hot Press.
Like I said, man, I was not going for Deion Sanders because I know that, and that is such a Dallas thing to do. And that's mostly, Jerry wants very self-centered person. So when Mike McCarthy and all this stuff, he leaves, He's like, oh, no. Put the spotlight on me. We're going and interviewing Deion Sanders. And now the talks about it is now Kellen Moore's name is being surfaced to coming back to Dallas. Just to rewrite saying he was wrong for firing, Kellen Moore. I'm like, I can't with this mess. I can't.
So there's a lot that's going on with the coaching interviews. Robert Saleh went in for an interview as well. Kellen Moore, Jason Witten, Deion Sanders.
Oh my God.
All went in for interviews with Dallas, and then you also had Deion Sanders interview with the Raiders. And the reason why I said you can see Dak Prescott potentially be a Cleveland Brown is because Deion said the only way he is taking a head coaching job in the NFL is if he can coach his sons, Shiloh and Shador. And the only way that he's going to do that is if Dak Prescott's not on the team. So that means that Dallas trades up with Cleveland, gives them their first-round pick next year, Dak Prescott this year, and then they trade back. And then watch Cleveland use Dak Prescott as a trading option, let's say with the Raiders or the Seahawks, get their first-round pick for next year, trade with them, get their position, draft the guy that they want, like an Abdul Carter or a Calvin Banks or something. That'd be an interesting way to see it. But, there's a lot of coaching names that are out there. Ben Johnson is the, odds and favorite to land the Raiders job right now because Tom Brady is the, leading force behind that.
Well, I do want to take a step back and go into this Dak Prescott. Because to me personally, why would you even entertain the thought? Because, and I say this because I don't like that contract. I don't like the $60 million a year contract. That's the one thing that would hinder anybody. It would hinder anybody. So I think the one thing about this with the Dak Prescott situation is that's just too much money, and he's a B-plus quarterback. And look, I'm not doubting Kevin Stefanski that he could turn that thing around. I'm not doubting that at all. But my thing is that if I'm being honest about this, I'm like, again, I watch everything around me, but my big thing is I just would not even entertain that thought of $60 million a year on that contract. That contract sucks.
You're right. It does suck.
And the thing is that, again, Cleveland, to me, I just see Cleveland with other needs. I really, really do. Because I get it. Deshaun Watson, he's going to be out the entirety of next year now because of the Achilles. And I need to get out of that Deshaun Watson business. I can't do it. And because now it's become more of a trap than anything else. And listen, if you find a way to get rid of Deshaun Watson and you bring in somebody, I'll be comfortable with a Sam Darnold because at the same time, you're trying to instill there's no toxicity in this organization. That's it. You don't want Sam to go back into a situation where it was toxic again. You just don't want to do that. And at least you'll keep your draft picks. Maybe you might get more if you trade away some pivotal pieces. Because like I said, if Myles Garrett, in my opinion, like I said, if he gets traded, that's a hot commodity. I get draft capital. I'll go get Abdul Carter, and I could go get more. I could go get more pieces.
He's not going anywhere. Like, he recently just came out after the HBO Hard Knocks series, said that after his meeting with Andrew Berry, he's very, very comfortable where, the idea and the direction that's going. And he said that there's big things to come this offseason. So who knows? But I'm only entertaining the idea of Dak Prescott because I don't think that we would keep him. I mean, granted, we are one quarterback away from being successful. But if we did decide to, we would use him as leverage. Like, the Raiders have a lot of draft capital and cap space. The Giants have a ton of cap space that they could pick up Dak Prescott from us, and so would the Seahawks. So, it's just an idea to entertain that. So,
but you know what they're going to ask for, though? They're going to ask about salary retention. Why get yourself in that business of salary retention if Cleveland, they know that they got to open up space? And it's not a whole lot. It's not a whole lot that they have to open up. It's only compared to the Saints and compared to other teams, like it's not a ton. So that's why I'm like, I don't know. Maybe I see it a little bit differently because to me, I wouldn't even entertain the thought. I would rather somebody else inquire and then throw the salary retention against Dallas, because that way then they're not in this contract trapped. That's the whole point of it. With like, if the Giants were to get Dak, which I could see that being a good thing because Brian Daboll, offensive coach, I've got offensive weaponry in front of me. I just got to fix the offensive line and maybe one more running back. But then salary retention, Dallas is going to pay majority of that. And the Giants, well, they got Dak for literally almost just a third of that contract rather than take the full on amount. So that's why I'm like, I'd rather that happen for somebody else. I just think Cleveland, I got other needs. I got other things I really want to be able to focus in on. Because the point of it is you don't want to have the fear of going backwards. That's my thing. I would not want to be able to do that because here's the thing. Let's say you do get Dak, and then how many teams are truthfully going to be interested, even if you're trying to use that as leverage? They see the contract. Like, that's the thing. They do the math. They don't want any part of that contract. None. That's why I'm like, they're going to ask for salary retention before they even do that.
Yeah, I mean, restructures are a thing as well that could be used. But today was the deadline for a lot of NCAA football players to declare for the NFL draft. We have seen now that Quinn Ewers, quarterback of the Texas Longhorns, is officially declaring for the NFL draft, and he is now ranked as the third best quarterback in this draft class.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Quinn Ewers, if he would have gone back to college, everybody would know he would go to Oregon. And to me personally, I like Quinn Ewers, but those games against Arizona State and Ohio State, he is sporadic. And I don't know if that's a Texas thing because they love their gunslinging quarterbacks. They do. But look, the thing is that you hope that translates better in the NFL. And I get, like, if you, like, let's say if I got Quinn Ewers to the Giants, right? I trust Brian Daboll that he could coach the recklessness out of Quinn Ewers. Because here's the thing. We watched this with Sam Darnold. We watched this with Josh Allen. You know how many picks that these guys ended up throwing? And a lot of the decision-making, they could clean that up and structurize themselves. That's the thing is that I hope Quinn Ewers is able to do that. Because that's not going to slide in this league. If you come in and you're sporadic and you're more of a mistake-prone quarterback than just the potential that's there in front of you, you just got to clean this stuff up. So I like Quinn Ewers. I think if the direction is right and he can clean it up, then I think he has a better chance. But yeah, think about it. So yeah, Quinn Ewers, he goes in. Drew Aller is coming back into Penn State, which is a good thing for Penn State. And mind you, like I talked about with Ohio State, I feel like Penn State could be on the rise. I really do think so. Because here's the thing. Michigan, it was them against everybody. And Jim Harbaugh and J.J. McCarthy and everybody, they won. And I said, this was on record, Ohio State fans, take a breather. They're going to recoup. And Ohio State's going to be fine. They're going to be in the runnings of winning the Natty. Okay, they were already high on the odds. They were already in favor that they were going to end up going to the national championship. Now they're here. And so to me, I always look for, because again, everybody questions about James Franklin, but that game was not terrible against Notre Dame. There were just penalties. There were some throws that were questionable. Like again, if that throw from Drew Aller did not happen, that would have been another possession for Penn State. it would have been. So that's why I'm a glass half full guy. I just see this with Penn State. I love the running backs. I love the fact that their offensive line, because again, Luke Bashanu came from there, and that offensive line is pretty damn good. When was the last time that they ever had a dynamic quarterback? And I think coming back to Penn State, there's unfinished business there. I think the other thing is he's trying to shape his skill set because he knows the quarterback market next year is going to be bigger and better. So I shape my skills then. I got a very good pass rush on defense. I think Penn State could be on the rise.
They could. They just need wide receiver help. Their tight end going into the draft's not helping. Their wide receivers are lackluster and nothing, to be too proud of. But I do think that Drew Aller going back to school is probably the best thing for him. I mean, you look at a lot of the up and coming guys like DJ Lagway. When he was with Florida, when he started becoming the starter full time, they went and rattled off 5 straight wins and everything. So it's going to be interesting to see what he can do in the next couple years.
That saved Billy Napier's job.
Yep.
DJ Lagway, I mean, I was just like how I felt about Florida State. I was just like, Florida is really not all that. And then once I saw DJ Lagway, the kid's got something in it. But again, I'm pumping the brakes a little bit because we thought about this with Anthony Richardson. But if Lagway's got something that I really like come next year, because I saw it, and I don't know if you saw the transfer portal, but Florida's been kind of getting some guys in, so I'm like, maybe this could be the real deal.
Yeah, I mean, DJ Lagway becoming a sophomore next year. You got Garrett Nussmeier coming back, and you got just the up-and-coming risers. Maybe Arch Manning will be out next year, maybe Nico. We'll have to wait and see how things are going to go, but it's going to be interesting to see, how things are going to be when it comes next year. Last but not least, we had another roster move today, which I was very shocked that happened because of how desperately in need of wide receivers they are. Deontay Johnson got cut from the Houston Texans, and the Ravens just claimed him off of waivers again going into this game, this week's games.
Now, here's the thing. So because of that happening, I don't know. This is a funny story, in my opinion, because what a hell of a year Deontay Johnson's had. This offseason, he was traded from Pittsburgh to go to Carolina. And then from Carolina, he goes to Baltimore at the trade deadline. And then he gets cut and then gets claimed by the Texans. And then all of a sudden, he comes back into Baltimore. Now, because of the NFL ruling, this is what it states, is because of this, Deontay Johnson will not be able to play in the remainder of the playoffs until possibly Super Bowl if it gets to that point. So that's why it's like, it's not necessarily, there's something in there. I don't know what that's about. There's something in there Baltimore has. So with adding Deontay Johnson, as interesting as it sounds, I mean, I just don't really see this as any other. I don't really see this as a pivotal thing. I mean, I don't know why. I don't. Again, this is just when I saw this headline, it made me chuckle a bit because I'm like, what in the world? Like, in what instance, there has to be something blanketed behind this. There has to be. I don't know what that is, but what a year for Deontay Johnson. What a year. A lot of uncertainty. I don't get it. I really don't get it.
I don't either.
Good stuff. Jason with the news.
This is the Hot Press.
So, of the remaining teams in the playoffs, okay, the most prolific game that we know, if either quarterback, either one, and depending on the state of Kansas City against Houston, all right, so this is what's interesting. Both these quarterbacks, both Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, they are fun to watch. They are. And they've been so prolific as quarterbacks to their own organizations and also the AFC outside of Patrick Mahomes. Okay, either one of those quarterbacks has a chance. And that is going to be something interesting. So to me, I feel like Buffalo and Baltimore, that's going to be such a close game. I'm taking the under on the over-under. That's what I would do. Both of them very prolific quarterbacks. Both of them who are going to be crowned MVP. This has been a great year for both Lamar and Josh. Now, Lamar Jackson, what's great about this year, this was arguably the most efficient passing year he's had in his career. Josh Allen doing more with less, but yet up-and-coming talents on offense with Khalil Shakir, Dalton Kincaid, and multiple others. Defense is what I'm going to be questioned about because both of them, now Baltimore, they were able to handle business against Pittsburgh. At Pittsburgh, they've become, they were the Philadelphia Eagles of last year. That's who they were to that game because they were a team that started hot and they got cold at the worst time. That's who they are. I mean, that in the end really took a bite in quite a bad way. But, however, Baltimore, they've been in this situation, in this scenario before, which is why that I think this game, outside of Kansas City and Houston, outside of the Eagles and the Rams, and the Lions and the Commanders, I think that game between the Ravens and the Bills is really going to pose a lot. And by the way, this game is also in Buffalo. So they'll be home. And the Bills can't afford to lose. Okay. However that game against Houston and Kansas City matches up, they're going to be prepared for either one. But I just think with both these prolific quarterbacks who both have been putting up MVP caliber years, you're going to know who the real MVP standing when at the end of that game. But either way, I love what both of them have done. I do, however, want to talk about, because again, I think the Chargers and Denver and even Washington are way ahead of schedule. But I do want to talk about New England. So as I've said before, hiring Mike Vrabel was making up for the mistake that Robert Kraft and the rest of that entire organization made. They knew they hired the wrong guy when it came to Gerard Mayo because he'd been living in Bill Belichick's shadow. Okay, so you knew he was not the right guy. You knew that this wasn't going to work. Mike Vrabel, now coming in the building, rewrites the wrongs that Robert Kraft put together. And at the same time, Coden, who was last in one of the previous organizations, has close ties to Mike Vrabel. They're going to work this thing perfectly. And I think in the end, it's what New England lacked was they didn't have a senior personnel when it came to talent scouting, especially when you need talented playmakers on offense. Okay, you needed that. Dante Scarnecchia, he was gone. And then you have Nick Caserio, he's gone. And so that's why New England needed somebody in this building. And at the same time, you had Gerard Mayo, who was just another one of a Belichick guy in Belichick's shadow. Mike Vrabel, he's not. Okay, he's won a Super Bowl as a player, and he's also taken a team like the Tennessee Titans with Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry and made him a number one seed. Okay, so Vrabel clearly works. Drake May is the sole reason that this team, it was attractive. They have a lot of cap space. They got a lot of draft capital. The schedule will look very favorable for New England next year. It will be. And what does that mean? That's an opportunity for a team to make a playoff and the other one to get knocked out. And you know what? I think the team that's going to get knocked out is the Steelers. With the way that things are going, I don't see the Steelers making the playoffs next year. As far as Denver and the Chargers, they both are ahead of schedule. They have an opportunity to go in the free agent market, buy some players, fix up the offensive line, maybe fix up a few defensive players, but go get weapons. And then they could come in the draft and do the same thing. But New England, they look like a team under Mike Vrabel, and with the confidence that's going to be given to Drake May, that team is going to make some serious noise. So like I said, there's always, every year, when we get new playoff teams, I feel like New England will be a playoff team next year. I think they will.
I could definitely see it. I could really see it, especially if they go out and they're trying to pursue a lot of weapons like what they claim that they're going to. Like, they're going to try to push heavily for T. Higgins, and then you've got Stephon Diggs available, Amari Cooper's available. You got
lots
a couple
available. Yep.
A lot of people available. And I see Mike Tomlin making the playoffs. Like, I see that happening just because he's never had a losing season, and he's constantly in the playoffs, but he will be a first-round bounce by the end of the year next year, like he has been the past 8 years.
But now here's my thought, is because I watched Jim Harbaugh take a team that was 5-12, and with the talent that they had constructed, okay,
and get smacked in the playoffs.
No. They turn around, turn them into 11-6. People had this team going 6-7 wins and turn them around to be 11-6. This team with New England, okay, I'm talking about the regular season. They are 4-13. I could see Mike Vrabel turn this team around and have double-digit wins. The schedule looks favorable. They'll have money in the cap to spend for important pieces. And then they go into the draft. And again, Coden that they picked up as a GM, this is what they needed. They needed that advisor there that knew how to get skilled playmakers, that knew it. Because I never had a problem with their defense. I've never had. But offensive line needs help. They do need offensive weaponry. I think you could go and get another running back set next to Ramondre Stevenson to keep the run game consistent. But then you go and you can get some defensive pieces however you like. But they're primed for this. That's why I think they'll be a double-digit win team. Much like the Chargers, who finished 5-12, turned around, became 11-6, and they were a playoff team, right? And then I think New England has a better shot at this than Pittsburgh. I'm serious. Because Pittsburgh is stuck on the idea that because they have Tomlin, who's never had a losing season, and then they probably will keep Russell Wilson. They probably will. And then, but yet the offensive line, who knows how that's going to be built? So there's only so much of this that you can handle. And then again, you got to get that locker room checked, because especially when you got players like George Pickens, who's obviously in a different headspace, when that happens, and then all of a sudden all these other guys, and then Najee Harris, I don't see Pittsburgh being a playoff team next year. I don't. I just think Denver and the Chargers have a better outcome, being the playoff teams again next year than Pittsburgh does. I don't trust them. I just think, like I said, they looked a lot like the Eagles of last year. Red hot in the first, 10, 11 games. They were red hot then, and then they completely shut down right toward the end of the season.
I mean, we've been saying about the Steelers for so long, though. Like, oh, this year's the year that they're going to be bad. This year's the year that they're going to be bad. This year's the year that they're going to be bad. And every year, they make it to the playoffs. Every year.
They do, but
nothing's going to change next year.
I don't know. I'm telling you now. Like, again, I'm reading that entire body language of that organization. I mean, look, I love Tomlin, and I respect him. But
I will
probably
bookmark this right now on January 15th at 8:57 p.m. that Jake Silva has said that the Pittsburgh Steelers will not make the playoffs next year.
Mark my words. Mark my words. I am saying this now, and you know what? I'll die on the hill with it. I don't think Pittsburgh will be a playoff team next year. I don't. I feel like they'll be 9-8, 9-8 more than anything else. But the Chargers and the Broncos, what are they? This is the thing. They're way ahead of schedule. What do they really need that's so drastic? Okay, playmakers?
Yeah.
Maybe more of a run game for Denver? Because
for the Chargers.
It was up and down. But the saving grace is at least they did have J.K. Dobbins. They did have that. I don't think they're going to keep Gus Edwards. I think they're going to let that contract go because I think they're going to go and address one in the draft, which is a smart thing to do. Get another bell cow there at running back so that you now have two heads. Because, again, that's the formula. If you have two really good running backs there, just like Detroit with, David Montgomery and with Jahmyr Gibbs, it's going to work. So I think if you do that, every team's catching on to that formula. But Denver needs it more than you think. I mean, I think Audric Estime, I think he is a guy you can turn that around. But I don't truthfully think Estime would be the bell cow that they're hoping for. They got to get somebody consistent. So that's why I think it would work. And then at the same time, go get another receiver, draft a tight end, go and get some pieces. They're really not that far away. And the Chargers, they're in the prime spot where they're going to have money in the cap. So they'll go spend. And like I said, they got some players I like that I hope they come back. And then at the same time, they could go get playmakers. That's the whole deal. They even said, and this was being pointed out, but GM Joe Ortiz had said, and so did Jim Harbaugh, they do not expect to make any coaching changes this year. They don't. So which means that Greg Roman is going to be retained for next year. As much as Charger fans don't like it, when was the last time this organization had continuity? That's the problem. There wasn't a whole lot of continuity in the last few years. There's been change of coordinators. There's been a change of head coaches. There's been change of this, change of that. How many more changes until there's actually continuity in the building? Don't screw up what's potentially going to work. So, and that's what Jim Harbaugh is harping. Okay, so, but if anything were to happen for next year, then you know who's on hot seat. It's not Jim, but you know who's going to be on hot seat. So that's why, like, Chargers, Broncos will have a better chance of staying playoff teams than Pittsburgh. And I think New England, because of this, I mean, look at this. You got the Jets. You got the Dolphins in your division. Sure, you probably will go toe-to-toe with Buffalo twice a year with Josh Allen. You might you might be capable of winning a game, maybe not get swept, and you're not going to sweep Buffalo. So, and then you got the rest of the AFC to think about.
The AFC was weak this year, but look at
how
it's going to be. Look how it's going to be next year. Like, Cleveland's possibly back on the rise. If Cincinnati gets a defense, like, they're going to be up there at the top of the league. You know, you got Denver, you got LA that's going to be on top. The Raiders, if they can get the right pieces and the right quarterback in there, and if they get Ben Johnson in, they could be on the rise as well. The Houston Texans, the Miami Dolphins, Indianapolis Colts. Like, you got a lot of these teams that were, like, bottom tier this year. Yeah. That are going to turn around and have, like, I could sit here and honestly say that out of 16 teams in the AFC, you're going to have 10 of them with winning records.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I've never doubted the AFC that they won't because, again, I think the standards are just different. And, I mean, compared to the NFC this year was actually very talented and was very competitive this year.
Shockingly, yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. So, of course, this, again, it's a pendulum swing between the two. That's why I think next year it will be the AFC. But this is why do you think I say that about Pittsburgh? because I've got all these other teams in the AFC, including Cleveland, who clearly is trying to be in a bounce back mode. Same with Cincinnati. And then Baltimore. That's why I said I think Pittsburgh is probably, they're going to be in such a tough stretch because that AFC North is physical. Okay, that's more of a bloodbath than anything else, anywhere else in the AFC. So, and by the way, that schedule, I'm sure when I look at it, I guarantee you it's not going to be favorable for Steelers. It's not.
Because we play the AFC East next year and the NFC North, which means we got the Packers, the Lions, the Vikings. Then we got the Bills, the Dolphins, the Jets, the Patriots.
So do you know what that means? That means 3/4 of my season are physical teams. That's everybody I'm facing twice a year in my division. And then I'm facing the NFC North. And then I'm also facing the Bills. How is that favorable? That's what I'm saying. You are now getting much more physical teams on your schedule now. That's what I'm saying. And depending on the dates, that's what I'm watching. I'm watching out for the dates. Because I'm telling you, Chase, if there is a 5-6 game stretch where it's all physical teams, they're going to get
They'll be facing the Chargers too next year because
they are. Yeah,
they face the second place team of the South, which will be the Colts, and the second place team of the West, which would be the Chargers. So they play the Chargers next year as well.
See, that's what I'm saying. Like, you have a 6-game stretch of nothing but physical teams. Watch how gashed Pittsburgh's going to get. They are going to get gashed. They're not even going to expect that. And especially with how that's broken down on the dates, that's not favorable. That's not. I think Pittsburgh, that's what I'm saying. I really find it hard to believe that Pittsburgh would be a playoff team. I really do. I think New England, because they're going to have certain stretches, maybe they'll have three or four physical teams, right? And then all the other teams are favorable matchups that they should win. Because Vrabel's not going to come in here and not do a job to where he could turn around this organization and then they're going to get double-digit wins. This was the same game plan that Jim Harbaugh had when he stepped into Los Angeles. This was the same game plan. They went 7-1 against teams that were below 500, the ones that they should beat, right, outside of Arizona. I guarantee you Mike Vrabel is going to probably do something similar like that. He's going to win. He's going to go up against the teams that they should beat, and they'll beat them. It's better to improve your record. I just think with Pittsburgh, I'm telling you, 6 stretches is not going to look good for them. They're going to get gashed. I think that's where injuries start to pile up. That's what I worry about the most. That's the one thing. Yeah, good stuff. This is going to be a fun weekend, though. But look, we're already getting insights into the offseason. We're already doing that. And then this is the other thing. And I know a lot of people were kind of, talking about back and forth with, the whole, well, the teams remaining, they still got a lot of their hot commodities. But again, because all of this, we all know Ben Johnson is going to be a hot commodity. We know that. But lots of teams, they're waiting to see what happens. Okay, that's the whole business deal. That's why with Chicago, do I really have time to wait? Or do I need to get a stabilizer in Mike McCarthy in here because I need to stabilize the organization? I think Colin Cowher made a great point. If you get a stabilizer in here and all you got to worry about is winning 10, 11 games, right? Get the offense right, get the team back into its mode, and then you can pass that on to the next hot commodity that goes into head coaching. Because you're better to build stability to where it's a likable destination rather than pump up your chest, go up guns blazing, and then I get Ben Johnson, and then all of a sudden Ben Johnson folds. That's not good. I didn't have any stability by that time. That's my problem. Again, I love Ben Johnson. And I think think personally, the Raiders are so patient that they're going to be waiting for the opportunity because, again, they could take phone calls. They just won't do the entirety of the hiring process. But I think they're patient. They're going to be waiting with it because they know he's going to be a hot commodity. And the other thing is that they open that GM spot up. Lots of teams do this for a reason. They're going to open the spot because they know that coach is going to want his own personnel.
Probably John Dorsey.
Yeah. I mean, hey, that's a well-respected GM. And you know, listen,
he got Baker to Cleveland, so I mean, got us Nick Chubb.
And listen, John Dorsey's a smart, like I'd say John Dorsey's more of an instinctive guy than anything else, because that's why I think it would be so fitting for the Raiders. I think it would be fitting.
Because right now he's with the Lions and everything. I can see him, like I think he's like the president of player personnel and everything. And then like Brad Holmes, like he's helping out Brad Holmes and everything. I can see that Ben Johnson would leave. He would request John Dorsey to be the GM there and everything. Yeah. And look at what he did with Cleveland, bringing all the talent there that he did. Nick Chubb, Baker Mayfield, Myles Garrett, like.
And that's the thing is that, you know, you get Andrew Berry and, you know, and so like I said, I think I think in a sense, they'll make this work. They'll make it work. I personally think because of that experience, I think they'll be okay. I think the Raiders, as long as they don't screw this up, and I think a lot of this is because Tom Brady's at the helm. He's taking the lead. So that's why I think they're being patient with this. But if that becomes the case, I think that could work. Instinctively, you get the right pieces, you fix that offense. I think then you go and get potentially Shedeur Sanders if you're able to land him. But that's why the Raiders need relevancy in this organization. They need it. They have been long overdue with it. So, yeah, I think this will be good. Good show tonight. Appreciate everybody for joining on in with us here tonight. Got our show tomorrow. Plus, also going to have our playoff time predictions for the weekend. Because, man, it's going to be a really cool one. I saw it's supposed to get down to 0 degrees at night here in Colorado. And it's supposed to get from what we're told. Possibilities of snow, not as great, but possibilities. So it's going to be a wild one all over the weekend. But we'll have our prime predictions tomorrow. Appreciate everybody for joining on and dropping by, guys. We're chasing myself. Enjoy the rest of the night, and we'll see you guys tomorrow on the Snake Sports Talk Show. See you later.
See you later.